with everything that's been going on in the NBA playoffs so far, from Luka Magic to Jimmy Butler looking like his old self, I figure it's probably time that us, as NBA fans and fans in general, discuss, do you still need a big three? Do you still need that dream team to take you to the promised land? Or can one man with role players do it all for you? Now, for a long stretch there, from like 2015 till around 2019 or so, you did need it. You had the Warriors and you had the Cavs, who all at some point had 3 All-Stars on their team and were just constantly going back to the finals over and over and over again. But with a little bit of research and just watching games in general, I think you can start to see the NBA trending away from that. And yes, for a time there, that was all you saw. Celtics with Ray Allen and everyone else, and Garnett. Heat with Wade, LeBron, Chris Bosh, Cavs, Kyrie, Love, LeBron, Warriors, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Kevin Durant, OKC Thunder, Kevin Durant, James Harden for a little bit there, and Russell Westbrook. For a time, that's all you saw was big threes. And you still see it quite often now. But is that what you need to win? That's the question we're going to be trying to answer here today. If this is your first time on the channel, my name is John. This is the Sports Advocate. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoy this content, give me a like or dislike. Give me some criticism down below because I'm really trying to improve for you guys. Comment if you think you still need a big three to go out and win. Do you think you still need 3 top players on one team to make a run? Is that something that you believe still needs to happen? If you really enjoy this content, hit me with a subscribe because I have content coming out daily, NBA, NFL, and NHL. But not to waste any more of your time on all that stuff, let's talk about it. Do you still need a big three? Or can one guy, 2 guys, a couple role players take you to the promised land? So first, let's start with the finals. That's where you want to be. And as a matter of fact, let's start with winners of the finals. Now, over this past decade or so, because that's primarily what we're going to be looking at, it's been a lot of big threes, and a lot of big threes winning. Like I said, the Cavs, the Warriors, the Heat, but there's also been some teams in there that weren't like that. I think a pretty good example of that is the Spurs. Not only have they made the finals quite a long time, quite a good amount in this past decade or a little bit over, but they never really had incredible players at the same moment. So that's the key thing here. So how I'm describing a big three or a bunch of all-stars is all-stars. So when I say one guy leading a team, I'm normally referring to one all-star on a team. And that is exactly what the 2013-2014 Spurs were. Yes, you had a young Kawhi Leonard who obviously has become incredible. You have an old Tim Duncan who was extremely good, but he wasn't an all-star this year. Nor was Kawhi. Nor was anyone else on the team. You know who was, though? Tony Parker. Tony Parker, the only all-star of the 2013-2014 Spurs team. He was the only player with 5+ assists on the team. He was the only player other than Tim Duncan to have 15+ points per game. He averaged less than 30 minutes per game, which is something you don't see very often nowadays. But he was the only all-star on a Spurs team who made the finals back-to-back years and won against a Heat team that has 3 all-stars at the time. LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Yes, they lost from the year before. Not only did they make the finals the year before, but they make it again the very next year and win it the next year. That's great. That's incredible, right? What one guy, one all-star, surrounded by a lot of role players, at least for that moment. Kawhi, not a role player anymore, but at that moment, was a large defensive heavy who could score when you need him to. But that wasn't what he's known for. And they go out and they win it. They win the finals against a Heat team which everyone favored. Not only that, but the Heat struggled at times against these guys. Guys that only had one person on their team that was an all-star. 2010, 2011, Dallas Mavericks. I'm sure we all remember this because this was an incredible series. And the underdog in the Mavericks won it. Now, we all know who the one all-star was. We do. And it was only one all-star. Dirk Nowitzki. One of the greatest power forwards of all time. Right next to Tim Duncan. He was the only all-star on this team. He was the only player to average 20 points per game on that team during the regular season. He was second in rebounds for the whole team. He was incredible. And during the finals, he was even more incredible. So, again, we have proof that you have one all-star on the team. Now, let it be known that for the Spurs, although there's only one all-star there, the guys did step up when it came to playoffs. But they definitely weren't known as a big three, at least in that moment. Looking back on it, we may think that, but in that moment, it wasn't, oh my gosh, look, it's Kawhi, Duncan, and Parker. And the Mavericks did quite a even more developed job. I mean, how many of you guys can name somebody off that Dallas team in 2010, 2011? I mean, I can't name a bunch of them. It was a lot of old guys. A lot of older guys. I think every single starter on that team was above 30, 32. Dirk was 32 at the time. You know, they didn't have a lot of great players. And even when you look at the roster now, none of those guys on the team were ever great players long term. You didn't have any people that competing for MVP outside of Dirk. You just didn't. And Dirk carried that team, again, beating the Heat, who had 3 All-Stars. Yes, it was the same All-Stars as the Spurs beat. So is it the Heat fumbling the bag against these lower-tier teams, or can one All-Star take you all the way? And the Mavericks won that series. So we have 2 times in the last decade, a little bit over a decade, where a team with one All-Star has won a finals. And yes, there's been multiple other occasions where 3 All-Stars win the finals more than this. But I don't think you have to have 3 All-Stars, nor do you really have the money for it. I mean, let's take a look right now. Sorry, guys. Let's take a look right now at the 4 remaining teams in the NBA playoffs at this moment. In the conference finals, before the last finals. We have 4 teams left. Let's go through those teams. Warriors. I believe Steph was the only All-Star on that team. I believe so. But Jordan Poole has been playing great. Klay Thompson has always been incredible. And Draymond Green's looked great. But Steph Curry is, I believe, unless Jordan Poole was the only All-Star on that team. I might be wrong on that, but okay. The Dallas Mavericks, again, a team that was already listed just minutes ago, only have one All-Star in Luka Doncic. This year, 2022. So we have 2 teams back-to-back who, I'm not for certain on the Warriors only have one All-Star, but I know the Mavericks only had one All-Star in Luka. He was the only player averaging above 20 points per game. In the regular season, he's only averaging above 30 points per game. I think more than 25 points per game in the playoffs for his team. He led the team in points, assists, rebounds, and steals. 4 of the 5 major statistical categories Luka led the team in. If that's not a one-man army, I don't know what is. He has no other All-Stars. That's one guy leading your team. Now let's look at the East over there. Boston Celtics, who don't fit this mold. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, both All-Stars. So they don't fit the mold, but again, they don't have 3 big guys, but they have 2 in the Miami Heat, who do technically fit the mold. Bam Adebayo was not an All-Star this year. Kyle Lowry was not an All-Star this year. Tyler Hero was not. He may have been Sixth Man of the Year, but he was not an All-Star this year. You know who was? The man that's been turning up all year round in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler was the only All-Star of the Miami Heat. So right now you're either 2 for 4. Where's my phone? You're either 2 for 4 or 3 for 4. And I'm going to check who the All-Stars, at least this year, for the Warriors were, just to make sure whether it's 2 for 4 or 3 for 4, because I can't remember off the top of my head. Warriors All-Stars 2022. We're going to search this real quick because I just want to be for certain. Andrew Wiggins. I forgot about Wiggins. Wiggins was an All-Star. So you're 2 for 4 at this moment for of the last 4 teams to only have 1 All-Star, where the other 2 have 2. Now, the thing is, I would argue that the favorites on each side are the teams that have 2 All-Stars. But let's not act like Luka has just got lucky to get here. He played incredible. Jimmy Butler has played incredible for each team respectively. I mean, Jimmy Butler, the only other player to average 20-plus points per game in the regular season was Tyler Hero, and he averaged 20 point something. It's not like he was close. And in the playoffs, Jimmy Butler averaging 29.8 points per game. There's not a single other player on that team in this playoffs that is averaging 15-plus points per game. Jimmy Butler is double every other person on his team in points per game. Every single one. That's a one-man army. That's one guy and role players. And they're incredible at the role-playing job. Let's not take it away from them. Bam. Great post guy. He got strength. He can get rebounds for you. Kyle Lowry. Very, very good at distributing the ball and at defense. Tyler Hero. Won Sixth Man of the Year. He can score. He can pass. You got guys. For the Mavericks, you have maybe not as incredible of guys. Brunson, who is able to do a lot more than Hero, I would say, at least at this playoff stretch, but nothing else. As a matter of fact, the Mavericks this year traded away a guy who was just an All-Star for them. Kristaps Porzingis. He was not an All-Star this year, but he just was not too long ago, and they traded him away, and then they end up here in the Final Four. But let's go back, and we don't have to go back far. 2021, the Hawks made the Final Four. Trae Young looked incredible, but let me tell you something. No one on that team was an All-Star. Not one. Not even Trae Young. Now, you could argue Trae Young probably should have been, but there's no one else on that team that really you could argue that statement for. And even if you're saying Trae Young should have been, who are you taking off that All-Star list? No one on the 2021 Hawks, which was an incredible Cinderella story, was an All-Star. And they played incredible during the playoffs. 2020, the Nuggets made the Final Four. The bubble year, they lose to the Lakers in the Final Four, and they only had an All-Star, Nikola Jokic. Yes, Jamal Murray played very, very good. He did. But it wasn't an All-Star. You only had Nikola Jokic. 2018 and 2017, the Rockets. James Harden, the only All-Star, makes the Final Four both years. 2017, Wizards. John Wall, the only All-Star on that team. So now we got 2022 and 2017 with 2 of the Final Four teams having only 1 All-Star. And I stopped there. I could probably keep going and find more, but that means we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the last, 7 years? 5 years. 7 teams in the last 5 years have made the Final Four with only 1 All-Star, or none. And in the last decade, 2 with only 1 All-Star have made and won the finals. I don't think you need that super team. Now, I'm going to make a video on the full thing. Are super teams needed anymore? I'm going to make a video looking at super teams individually and their struggles. But let's take a quick glance at some of these super teams and how well they've done. Let's take a look. The Lakers. At the beginning of the year, people were saying, hey, this is a big three right here. Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. Missed the playoffs completely this year. The Nets knocked out round one with a big three for most of the year. And they get knocked out. And I still think they're probably a lot of people's favorites for next year if that team sticks together. I mean, I think you get the point of where things are heading. There's a lot of teams that have big threes or some incredible pieces who just don't do very well. Heck, the Bulls. I'm a Bulls fan. I think you guys probably all know that by now. Dang, that's chair squeaky. I'm a Bulls fan. Do the Bulls have a big three? I wouldn't say so. But let's point something out real quick. Last year, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine were All-Stars. This year, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan were All-Stars. So within the past 2 years, there's been 3 players that have been All-Stars that are currently on this team, on the Bulls team. They get knocked out to a Bucks team that also only had 2. And the Bucks lose to the Boston Celtics that only have 2, so they match up pretty well. And, as a matter of fact, it was really only Giannis Antetokounmpo in this round, but he loses to the Boston Celtics, and that's a lot to do with their defense. Not really their 2 big All-Stars. There's a lot of teams who have already proven that one man or some role players can get you far. And let's go a little farther back. Let's go to a guy that everyone says has always had super teams. LeBron. He took that Cavs team with a bunch of nobodies to the finals. Yeah, he got swept in the finals, but he still took them there, and he was a one-man just by himself. There is plenty of reason and statistics to back up the point that you can still win without having the super team. And I think the Heat, who not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, they didn't do very good compared to their expectations. They didn't. I mean, just right here, we have 2 listed right here where one All-Star took them out. Tony Parker with the Spurs and Dirk with the Mavericks took out that Heat team, who was going to win all of the championships for the next decade, as they were saying. You don't need a super team anymore, and I think that's what makes the NBA so fun to watch. And these final 4 teams, we have 2 of them that have 1 All-Star, and the other 2 have only 2 All-Stars. Now, the Warriors are a different case. Klay Thompson comes back a little late. He's not going to make it. Draymond Green's been in and out, but he's been incredible. But there's a chance that not only one team with only 1 All-Star makes the finals this year, but 2. There's a chance that 2 teams, the Mavericks and the Heat. Now, I think they're both probably the underdogs at this very moment, especially with the game that happened last night with the Heat and the Boston Celtics. But we can't count them out. And that's the point. That's the video, pretty much. You don't need a super team to win in the NBA anymore. I just don't think you do. And feel free to comment down below if you think I'm wrong. But if you do think I'm wrong, tell me why. And I'm not beating around the bush. I'm not telling you that super teams don't work. They do at times. But I think a well-rounded roster with role players and that one guy can do the same thing that a 3-stack super team with bad bench does. I think one-on-one you can still beat that team. Look at the Nets. So that's my point. And that's it. Have a conversation with me in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like. If you really enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, because it takes one click, and then you get to see my videos more often. And you can see my videos daily, NBA, NHL, and NFL. And I'm trying my best to improve, so give me some criticisms on how to improve more. But as always, I hope I taught you something today. That there's some very enticing conversations that we can have based around the subject. Some incredibly detailed conversation we could have, and a back and forth. It doesn't have to be a fight, but we can have a conversation. I hope it made you smile. I hope it made you laugh. There's something really important to me. It affects someone else's day in a great way, because we truly can all have a great day every day if we put in the effort to make everyone's days better. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.